Hello, and welcome to a new series here on the channel called Best of Writing. And in this episode, we're going to be looking into who is the best writer of action in fantasy of all time, based off of my audience's response. Now, this is a new series, so it's probably going to change and be polished up quite a bit here in the future. So give me some time to make this as clean, quick, efficient, and accurate as possible. I'm already aware that for this video, the collection of data is probably not the most scientifically bulletproof of all time, but trust me, it'll get better, and I'm excited to bring this new series to the channel. But let's go ahead and kick off Best of Writing Action Edition. So on Twitter, I asked my audience, who's your favorite at writing action? And I didn't even specify for fantasy, so some people threw in some outside the box picks. I had to unfortunately dismiss those altogether as we're trying to focus on fantasy here, but we still had a lot of results and people naming multiple authors, which, hey, if you have a tie, I'll include them all. But without any further ado, let's jump into the data. Kicking off the list here, we have, I think surprising nobody, Joe Abercrombie with a remarkable 12 votes. And I'm actually gonna give him a little special award here on the side as well for most liked when mentioned. That's right, Joe Abercrombie, whenever his name came up, got a lot of likes. People coming through and adding on additional, I guess their own subvotes, unfortunately I couldn't account, to approve of his name being mentioned. So yes, Joe Abercrombie kicks off this list with a pretty high vote count and already his own little special award. Following up Joe, we have Abnet with only 1 vote, and then a wild YouTuber appears with Shad Brooks having 1 vote as well for his Shadow of the Conqueror. Pierce Brown comes in next, barely edging out Jim Butcher, who follows him up. I'm actually really surprised to see Jim Butcher this low. I expected him to be rivaling the likes of Joe Abercrombie, but he's not even close. With his works in the Aeronauts Codex Alera and of course the Dresden Files, I thought his action would be highly praised, but it appears people aren't necessarily vibing with his action-heavy wizard. But yes, Pierce Brown edges him out with 5, and Joe's 4 is nothing to shrug at. Next up, Jacqueline Carey, who wrote Kushiel's Legacy, gets 1 honorable mention. Congratulations, that's a nice little tip of the hat. And then Castell and Cornish only get 1, though don't count out the Corns altogether because Cornwall has a remarkable 8. David Dalglish and Sarah Douglas have 1 apiece, but then Steven Erikson swings in hard with 6. I'm also going to give Steven Erikson a special award here because pretty much every single time his name was mentioned, people said, easily, totally, 100%. So it appears Steven Erikson gets the award for most devoted fans. Raymond D. Feist is then done dirty by my audience with only 1 vote for him. Wow, that's surprisingly low. David Gidmel swings in fairly hard with a notable 3, and Michael Grant has a serviceable 1. John Gwynne comes in remarkably hard with a very respectable 8. The author of the Faithful and the Fallen series and of Blood and Bone has quite the reputation, and I'm excited to start his works here fairly soon. Hadley has only 1, and to my utter shock, Robin Hobb only had 1 vote as well. I think this author's kind of being screwed over by my audience. Robin Hobb, while her action is minimal, from what I've experienced, it's effective when used, and I actually credit authors who hold back on violence quite a bit. I like when there's more of a sparing usage of it, so when it does come up, it hits hard. My audience disagrees though, and Robin Hobb must slink away with only 1 vote. Robert E. Howard has a notable 2, and Robert Jordan himself crashes into the tournament with a very heavy 10, with a special award of the most overexplained, where a lot of people who brought up Robert Jordan felt the need to explain exactly why. This is largely due to the fact that his prose style here is pretty distinguished in how he writes action, I feel. People want to note the fact that Robert Jordan writes action really different than a lot of people. But he's still yet to overcome Joe Abercrombie's 12. Will anybody do so? Well, it's certainly not Jay Kristoff, because he only has 1 vote. Though I'm very happy to say Rebecca Kwong, author of The Poppy War, has 3 votes, well above the standard, and I still believe underrated. Her hyper-realistic and brutal action style is very effective to me, and while her prose are a bit weaker overall, that's going to tie into the conclusion I come to at the end of this video. There's a notable pattern here that I'm going to talk about. Mark Lawrence is once again voted quite low, with only 1 mention of his Book of the Ancestors series. I think this is a bit underrepresentative of how well he portrays action, but that's just me. Lecky and, surprisingly, Scott Lynch as well only come in with 1 notable entry apiece for their votes being the best of the action. But Fonda Lee breaks this pattern again with 3 mentions of her name, and specifically Jade City coming in strong. This author I've yet to get to, but I'm excited to do so. Now, the biggest upset award is clearly going to go to George R.R. Martin, who I expected, just based off his pure popularity, would get people mentioning him who just don't read that much fantasy, so they say George R.R. Martin by default. I admit, his action's not the best, but only having 1 vote for George R.R. Martin? Wow, he almost could have been left off this list entirely if that 1 person didn't see this status. That's amazing. Yes, I don't think his action's the best, but you'd think just because of popularity, some more people would mention him. So he does get the biggest upset award, but he's going to share it with another author down the road. Brian McClellan, who's the author of the Powder Mage trilogy. He has 4 votes, and quite frankly, I expected him to get more as well. Brian McClellan is outstanding when it comes to writing action, and I believe one of the strongest selling points of the Powder Mage trilogy as a whole. Interesting magic system, brutal action on a Napoleonic scale. What's not to love there? But apparently not as many people think he should be ranked higher than myself, though this list will be skewed, asking so many people to name their favorites to one individual. I wish I had done a top 3. That might be how this series is conducted in the future. Michael Moorcock, author of the Elric series, gets a vote, and followed up by Christopher Paolini, who also got 1 vote for his Inheritance cycle. Congratulations, Christopher. You're still relevant, and I look forward to your books. That's impressive to be around and still appreciated this long as an author. My audience proves they don't entirely share my taste once again when they come in and give Terry Pratchett only 1 vote. I get not necessarily his taste being for everybody, but his absurd approach to action in Discworld puts him very high on my list, and the skewing here becomes more apparent with me only saying favorites. My bad. It'll be top 3 or 5 in the future. But Patrick Rothfuss stomps over him with his 3. Patrick Rothfuss, I get the appeal. It's not necessarily how I love my action to be written, but I completely respect the people who have chosen Patrick Rothfuss here. His writing is absolutely beautiful, even when it comes to the action. R.A. Salvatore shakes up the consistent low counts of this list by breaking up the mold and having 6 to his name, but he is completely and utterly dwarfed by the author who now dethrones Joe Abercrombie. Joe Abercrombie had 12 votes, while Brandon Sanderson has 26, well over doubling anyone else on this list. Holy shit, Brandon. And this is going to tie into my conclusion at the end of this video, where I look at the data and try to come up with some form of lesson to be taken away. And I'm going to ask for your comments as well on that conclusion I get to, but first, let's get through the rest of this list. Subkowski, author of the Witcher series, ties Patrick Rothfuss with a 3, and I'm surprised to see him getting this many. I like the action in Witcher, I just can't see that many people putting it as their all-time favorite. But I was proven wrong, and it appears to be these 3 people's favorite. V.E. Schwab gets criminally underrated by my audience with only 1 vote, and Siegler gets 1 as well. Michael Stackpole and Matthew Stover also get 1 apiece, and showing that I did not get the alphabetical order in this list perfect very prominently, Stephen King has 4. Now, this was not something I'd predict at all, as many people in my own audience balk at the idea I put forward that Stephen King is even a fantasy author, even though he has the Dark Tower series under his belt. But each and every person, I think, who brought up Stephen King specifically mentioned his handling of action in either Dark Tower or The Stand, and I absolutely understand the appeal here. While it's not the most over-the-top, spotlight, flashy action in like a Sanderson style, King's dry and very realistic approach to action overall, I think is something that'll resonate with a very large portion of fantasy readers. We like the kind of gritty stuff now, and Stephen King's been that way for decades. Now Tolkien comes in the list as well and shares an award with George R.R. Martin, having 1 vote to his name. And this I actually totally understand. While Tolkien is freaking Tolkien, action's never been the reason people love Lord of the Rings. The sieges are wonderful, and I think that actually might have been the driving selection behind this pick maybe, but yeah, he doesn't really have the most detailed, gritty, resonate with you action in his text. Lord of the Rings I expect overall to do phenomenally in any other kind of list like this I put together, but action's one area where I just don't see many people voting for it. Though, if you do, I understand why. Tolkien makes few mistakes. Brent Weeks comes in with a strong 4, and honestly I expected him to be higher. Lightbringer isn't perfect by any means, but the action is one of the biggest appeals to this series as well, and I expected the Lightbringer fans to show up very strong. I don't know if this is because some people were disappointed by the last book, or they just weren't necessarily thinking a series, but this one might be the biggest anomaly to me overall for here. In fact, I'll give it the Anomaly Award, because I think it's a no-duh just looking at my comment sections that a lot of people really love the way Lightbringer comes through and portrays its action. I'm confused by this one more than any other else. You get the Confusion Award. Congratulations. I'm extremely proud to say that my audience represented author M.L. Wong very well, giving her 3 votes, and with this being a self-published title that almost everyone I know in my audience picked it up based off my review, I'm kind of proud of that. It's nice to see that they showed up and represented this author and her beautiful portrayal of action strongly. This is one that I think I'm going to give the award to. Check it out if you haven't already. My review of Sword of Kaigen, M.L. Wong's book, is basically just a giant sales pitch because I found it to be outstanding. This, I maintain, to this day, is the future of fantasy, or at least what I hope the future of fantasy will look like. Will Witt has a respectable 2 votes, and coming in so strong, I love it! Evan Winter with a 6. Hell yeah, Rage of Dragons getting the representation here. Yeah, Rage of Dragons. Some of the best action fantasy has to offer. Totally worth it, and 6 votes for it. With 1 book under you? Hell yeah! Moving on. Roger Zelensky brings this list to a rather average close with 1 vote to his work as well. Congratulations! So, what I've done here is knock out every author who only had a single vote to their name. That gives us a little more clear vision of what exactly this data looks like. Sorry, single vote authors, but we need to take a look. As you can see, Sanderson's domination is pretty substantial. Even if you combine the next two runners up, Abercrombie and Jordan, he still would be well ahead of them, with 20% of the overall vote if you don't include the single vote authors. Do I think Sanderson is that much better at writing action? No, this is coming down to popularity here, I believe. Sanderson is very good at writing action, but he's not that much better than the rest of his peers. It's just extremely digestible, and we'll get more into that in the conclusion. Finally, I thought it was interesting to actually break this down by gender real quick. If you look, we are very substantially male-based, over 85%. A lot of female authors were knocked out if you just take out the single vote authors. Do I think women are worse at writing action? Absolutely not. And actually, this is fairly representative of the current gender breakdown of just overall authors within fantasy, at least from what I've seen. I'm welcome to be proven wrong, but there are definitely more male authors writing fantasy, and this is slightly skewed though. I'd love to see more female authors in here, and if you know some that write great action, put them in the comments down below so my audience and myself can discover them. And I do believe Robin Hobb should still be on here. The fact that she has to be removed with the single vote is a crime of fantasy. Okay, let's hop into the conclusion. Now, with hundreds of votes cast from well over 100 people, I think it would be dangerous to have any drastic conclusions pulled from this voting system. It was more just a fun way to get the pulse of my audience here. That being said, there's one consistency I've noticed that I think would be an interesting discussion. I'm not saying this is definitive, but I'd like to bring it up. It seems that high prose seems to be a deal breaker for a lot of people when it comes to writing action. Sanderson, Abercrombie, Jordan, and even Evan Winter, people who ranked very high in this list, don't have the highest of prose. And those that did were either low ranking or left off this list altogether. In fact, Tad Williams wasn't mentioned, and I found that to be rather interesting. Now, if I was going to try and stipulate a reason behind this, I think it's because when it comes to action, communication is extraordinarily important. Clear, concise, and easy to digest communication so that the audience can understand what's going on. With high prose, you're adding a layer of difficulty to that. Whereas Sanderson, the person who was clearly the runaway winner here, and I think his lead is safe, even if we did conduct this in a much more scientific manner, has extremely simple prose. It's something he even has said he purposefully does, and his action scenes are no exception to this. Very straightforward, very well structured, easy to understand. That seems to be a key element to writing an action sequence that a lot of people will love, understand, and enjoy. No surprise. I'm not shocked by that at all. But that's just my conclusion from the data we've seen here. Do you have any yourself, or do you think this is completely useless because it was just, some people over Twitter? Though I do think well over 100 is enough to get some stipulation from. And how do you think I should collect data like this in the future? And do you like this series as a whole for the channel? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.